Hi, welcome to A Gray Barn Rising. I'm here this evening with Bootsy Beagle, and I'm reading the poetry of the poet Bob Kaufman. Bob Kaufman lived from 1925 to 1986. He's primarily known as a beat poet. He was part of the Beat generation. As a matter of fact, he's often credited with coining the term beatnik. He's a remarkable poet of great spiritual intensity, and unfortunately he's not as well known as he should be. Bob Kaufman, as part of the Beat generation, lived at a time when he was persecuted, particularly because he was African American and because he was part of an interracial couple. He was married to his wife Eileen. He was Jewish. His father was German Jewish. His mother was African American Catholic. So he has these interesting streams moving into his ethnicity and into his being. They come out in really powerful ways in his work, intermingled with his love of jazz music and improvisation. He adored Charles Mingus. He adored Charlie Parker, the child that he and Eileen had, as a matter of fact, they named Parker. I'd like to share a few of his poems for you this evening. He's got some of the best book titles I've come across. This book came out originally in 1959, Solitude's Crowded with Loneliness. And I'll also read for you this evening the other book with another remarkable title, The Ancient Rain. So let me start with some poems from Solitude's Crowded with Loneliness. Benediction. Pale brown Moses went down to Egypt land to let somebody's people go. Keep him out of Florida, no UN there. The poor governor is all alone with 600,000 illiterates. America, I forgive you. I forgive you, nailing black Jesus to an imported cross every 6 weeks in Dawson, Georgia. America, I forgive you. I forgive you, eating black children. I know your hunger. America, I forgive you. I forgive you, burning Japanese babies defensively. I realize how necessary it was. Your ancestor had beautiful thoughts in his brain. His descendants are experts in real estate. Your generals have mushrooming visions. Every day your people get more and more cars, televisions, sickness, death dreams. You must have been great, alive. His poems have deep political consciousness to them as well, as you certainly heard in that poem, Benediction. Unholy missions. I want to be buried in an anonymous crater inside the moon. I want to build miniature golf courses on all the stars. I want to prove that Atlantis was a summer resort for cavemen. I want to prove that Los Angeles is a practical joke played on us by superior beings on a humorous planet. I want to expose heaven as an exclusive sanitarium filled with rich psychopaths who think they can fly. I want to show that the Bible was serialized in a Roman children's magazine. I want to prove that the sun was born when God fell asleep with a lit cigarette, tired after a hard night of judging. I want to prove once and for all that I am not crazy. That last line is profound because Bob Kaufman was a really radical poet in that he was in and out of jail many times. I think he was incarcerated something like 36 times when beat poets were in fact being targeted and thrown in jail for various misdemeanors and other crimes. And I think some of the craziness of being confined, some of that outer confinement and thus inner confinement comes out in almost a holy madness in some of his work. Here's Blues Note. I mentioned his love of jazz. He also loved the blues, and this is a poem for Ray Charles. That doesn't say that, but it begins with Ray Charles. Blues Note. Ray Charles is the black wind of Kilimanjaro, screaming up and down blues, moaning happy on all the elevators of my time, smiling into the camera with an African symphony hidden in his throat, and I Got a Woman wails too. He burst from Bessie's crushed black skull one cold night outside of Nashville, shouting, and grows bluer from memory, glowing bluer still. At certain times you can see the moon balanced on his head. From his mouth he hurls chunks of raw soul. He separated the sea of polluted sounds and led the blues into the promised land. Ray Charles is a dangerous man, way across town, and I love him. And this is written for Ray Charles' birthday, New York City, 1961. Those are a few poems from Solitudes Crowded with Loneliness. And I'd like to turn now to The Ancient Rain, which is a little bit later book of Bob Kaufman's. Here's a few short poems. Bob Kaufman was also a Buddhist, and he had an interest and a love of Japanese culture. And these are called bonsai poems, and they're very short, sometimes 5 or 6 line poems. They're numbered. There's 8 of them here. I won't read the numbers, but I'll pause between sections. Bonsai poems. I remember those days before I knew of my soul's existence. I used to be able to step on bugs and steal flowers. All those well-meaning people who gave me obscure books, when what I really needed was a good meal. Lately, since formulating mystic parables of my own, people ask me, what do I know all about China? And do I think surrealism will spread to Iowa? Or would winning the Pulitzer Prize have saved chessmen? When I answer that I am writing the great American suicide note, they sniff my clothes and leave. Men who love women should never go swimming. Every time I see an old man carrying a shabby cardboard suitcase, I think he is an eternity agent on some secret mission. I never understand other people's hopes or desires until they coincide with my own. Then we clash. Yes, there was a time when I was unsure of myself, but that was before I was me. I barely knew him. The culture of the caveman disappeared due to his inability to produce a magazine that could be delivered by a kid on a bicycle. That poem typifies for me the way Bob Kaufman can interweave seriousness with humor and deep play. I adore the way he does that. Bob Kaufman took a vow of silence after President Kennedy was assassinated in 1963. He did not speak for nearly 10 years until the Vietnam War was winding up and almost over. He would say things, his wife said that he would say little things like hi, or do you have a cigarette, things like that. But Bob Kaufman really never spoke much beyond that for about 10 years. And then one night when they heard the news that the Vietnam War was coming to a close. They were at a party, like a potluck dinner of some sort. And out of nowhere, in the middle of this crowd of people, he began to talk again. And his first words were a recitation from Eliot's Murder in the Cathedral. He began reciting that, and people were astounded. A, that he knew it, but B, that he spoke. And then he also began to speak a version, not the exact lines, but a version of the first few lines of this poem that I want to read for you now. This poem has no title. Some of his poems are untitled. Many of his poems he didn't even write down. They were poetry in the oral tradition, and his wife would write them down. Sometimes he would write them down on napkins, and they were found later in a bagel shop and then typed up. Very interesting way of composition that he had, that spontaneous, improvisational form of composition. In any regard, this poem has no title, but we know it by the first lines, all those ships that never sailed. And it gets to this point, 3 or 4 stanzas in, that is so beautiful, so humanly touching. I can't wait to share, especially that part of the poem with you. All those ships that never sailed, the ones with their sea cocks open, that were scuttled in their stalls, today I bring them back, huge and intransitory, and let them sail forever. All those flowers that you never grew, that you wanted to grow, the ones that were plowed underground in the mud, today I bring them back and let you grow them forever. All those wars and truces dancing down these years, all in 3 flag-swept days, rejected meaning of God. My body, once covered with beauty, is now a museum of betrayal. This part remembered because of that one's touch. This part remembered for that one's kiss. Today I bring it back and let you live forever. I breathe a breathless I love you and move you forever. Remove the snake from Moses' arm, and someday the Jewish queen will dance down the street with the dogs and make every Jew her lover. That's such a beautiful poem, and for me the stanza that just murders me again is, my body once covered with beauty is now a museum of betrayal. This part remembered because of that one's touch. This part remembered for that one's kiss. Today I bring it back and let you live forever. I think that stanza, for me, is Bob Kaufman at his most tender. Perhaps not his best, but at his most tender. I really debated tonight about how to share the Ancient Rain poem with you. It's a very long, very beautiful poem. I decided I'm just going to read you a few paragraphs from it. It's written in paragraphs so that you can get the velocity of it and the effect of his litany and his ongoing accretion of images. But I would encourage you to read the entire poem. I shall be black rain like the rain that fell on the day Martin Luther King died. I need to begin again. It's not I, it's it. It shall be black rain like the rain that fell on the day Martin Luther King died. It shall be the ancient rain that fell on the day Franklin Delano Roosevelt died. It shall be the ancient rain that fell when Nathan Hale died. It shall be the brown rain that fell on the day Crispus Attucks died. It shall be the ancient rain that fell on July 4th, 1776, when America became alive. In America, the ancient rain is beginning to fall again. The ancient rain falls from a distant secret sky. It shall fall here on America, which alone remains alive on this earth of death. The ancient rain is supreme and is aware of all things that have ever happened. The ancient rain shall be brilliant yellow as it was on the day Custer died. The ancient rain is the source of all things. The ancient rain knows all secrets. The ancient rain illuminates America. The ancient rain shall kill genocide. The ancient rain shall bring death to those who love and feel only themselves. The ancient rain is all colors, all forms, all shapes, all sizes. The ancient rain is a mystery known only to itself. The ancient rain filled the seas. The ancient rain killed all the dinosaurs and left one dinosaur skeleton to remind the world that the ancient rain is falling again. The ancient rain splits nations that have died in the ancient rain, nations so that they can see the culture of the living dead they have become. The ancient rain is falling on America now. It shall kill D.W. Griffith and the Ku Klux Klan. Hollywood shall die in the ancient rain. This nation was born in the ancient rain, July 4th, 1776. The ancient rain shall cause the Continental Congress to be born again. The ancient rain is perfection. The ancient rain cured the plague without medicine. The ancient rain is vindictive. The ancient drops are volcanoes, and in one moment destroyed Pompeii and brought Caesar down, and now Caesar is fallen. This Roman Empire is no more. The ancient rain falls silently and secretly. The ancient rain leaves mysteries that remain and no man can solve. Easter Island is a lonely place. And the poem continues like that. I went into the middle of the poem, and that's a wonderful opening as well, but I wanted to give you a taste of the incredible intensity, celebration, and litany effect of his great poem, The Ancient Rain. Bob Kaufman is a poet that for too long has been overlooked, overshadowed, in fact, by his fellow beat poets. Many people we know, like Allen Ginsberg and Lawrence Ferlinghetti and other poets of the San Francisco Renaissance. I believe that Bob Kaufman's contribution, not only as a beat poet and not only as an African-American poet, but as a truly American poet, has been overlooked far too long. And I really hope you investigate his work and delve into it more deeply. Thank you so much for joining us. I should mention again, I read Solitude's Crowded with Loneliness, and I read from that book, and I read from The Ancient Rain, the poems of Bob Kaufman. Thanks for joining Bootsy and me for another episode of A Great Barn Ride.